Canada may be trying to play nice with the Trump administration, but that isn't stopping Prime Minister Trudeau and his team from pushing an agenda very different from the country's southern neighbor. Trudeau is standing firm on commitments to open trade and fighting climate change at the G7 summit in Italy. Bloomberg's Parliament Hill reporter Josh Wingrove is traveling with Trudeau and shared some insight into Canada's approach.
Trudeau finds himself as sort of an elder statesman suddenly here at the G7. This is only his second meeting, but there's 4 new members around the table. And so he's trying to sort of ramp up pressure on a couple of agendas. One is finding common ground. Trudeau's, by definition, somewhat of a peacemaker. His autobiography was called Common Ground. And Chrystia Freeland, his foreign minister, said that phrase repeatedly today when asked about divisions with the U.S. on trade and climate and everything else. So Canada is, I think, pressing to get sort of as much as it can out of the U.S. to make sure they get some sort of statement on all these topics. The other thing that they're sort of pressing for overall is on trade and growth and inclusiveness. These are all regular themes for Canada. We've heard, for instance, that the communique will include mention of gender equality as sort of a fundamental part of human rights. That's new, and that would be sort of seen, at least by the Canadians, as a win. So, you know, things are evolving here as the summit sort of reaches its halfway point, but Trudeau finds himself sort of increasingly relied upon to help drive the agenda, given that he is one of the 3 only who've ever been here before.
And Josh, what can you tell us about how his agenda is being received, especially on a topic like climate change, where there's a lot of daylight between him and President Trump?
Yeah, climate is shaping up to be the battleground at this summit. And so far, I think Trudeau's having trouble making sort of the sell on Donald Trump. There are signs that that we have essentially a G6 on climate and trade and an outlier, the U.S., when it comes to that. And so I think we're going to be seeing Trudeau sort of try to make a push, as I said, to find anything that they can get the U.S. to agree on these subjects so that Trudeau and the U.S. can sort of call it a victory and move on. They've done that at previous summits this year, helping broker a deal to get the U.S. on board. So we're going to, I think, look at that. All eyes are on Donald Trump when it comes to climate, of course, with respect to the Paris Agreement. He hasn't given an indication as to whether he will pull the U.S. out of that deal or not, what kind of changes he would want to see. If there was any announcement of that here at the summit, that would be big news and could come part and parcel with any sort of haggling over the climate language in the communique. These summits are all about the communique. It's kind of gets a bit silly sometimes, but they're going to be up all night here in Sicily and haggling over the final language.
And tell us about Trudeau's meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. At least from here, it sounds like there may be a new bromance in the works.
Oh my gosh, yeah, sort of the opposite end of the spectrum from the Trump situation. Macron has sort of gone out of his way as one of the new kids on the block to make a bit of an impression. He's been trolling Donald Trump a little bit, and he and Trudeau hit it off. The pool report from their meeting read like something like a romance novel. Frankly, it was. They talked about generational challenges, which really underscores sort of the generational change of leaders going on at the G7. They talked about climate. They talked about trade. I think those two are going to be able to rely on themselves, in particular with Angela Merkel of Germany, as being really like-minded on those issues. And so it presents a bit of a trouble for Trudeau because he's trying to cozy up to Trump. He's played nice with Donald Trump so far. Macron is being more of an agitator with Trump, and Trudeau and Macron will sort of have to figure out which approach maybe is best.